The 2024 athletic season was full of unforgettable moments, unexpected surprises, and performances that broke all expectations. Without a doubt, the Paris Olympic Games were the highlight of the year, offering a series of exciting competitions where new names appeared and old stars faced. Unexpected challenges dot among all the events. The women's 100-meter sprint got special attention thanks to a story of overcoming obstacles, power shifts, and national glory. One of the most shocking moments in Olympic athletics was the victory of Julien Alfred, the sprinter from St. Lucia, in the women's 100 meters with a time of 10.72 seconds. Alfred not only won the gold medal, but also wrote a new page in her country's sports history, becoming the first St. Lucian athlete to win Olympic gold in athletics. Her win wasn't just a personal achievement, but also a symbol of how athletics is growing globally, where new countries are starting to make a name among the traditional powerhouses. Alfred's victory was even more meaningful because she defeated the big favorite of the event, Sha'Carri Richardson, the American, who had dominated competitions in the previous season with a world-leading time of 10.71 seconds in 2023. She was seen by many as the natural successor to legends like Shelley-Ann Fraser-Price and Elaine Thompson-Herah. Explosive speed and charisma on and off the track had made her the visible face of women's sprinting. But as Paris showed, in elite athletics, nothing is guaranteed. The absence of key figures also shaped the context of this final. The Jamaicans, Fraser-Price, Thompson-Herah, and Shericka Jackson, who had dominated the international scene in previous years, didn't make it to the Olympic final. The reasons varied, from injuries to fitness problems or strategic decisions. These absences opened the field for new stars, and Julien Alfred didn't waste the opportunity in a race where every hundredth of a second can make the difference. The start is crucial, and that's exactly where Alfred made the difference. Her start was perfect. Launching with precision from the blocks and taking the lead from the first meters, while other runners were slow to react, she had already gained half a body's advantage. Her technical and mental execution in that decisive moment was perfect, which shows high-level psychological preparation. The pressure on Richardson was huge. Although she came to the competition with the best time from the previous year, the day of the final in Paris wasn't hers. She didn't achieve her usual explosion in the first 60 meters, and when she tried to come back, Alfred was already way ahead. Despite not winning, Richardson proved to be an elite competitor, and her presence in the final showed her consistency at the highest level. However, the spotlight this time was on St. Lucia. What makes this story even more special is that Alfred went from being a promising athlete to Olympic champion in just a couple of seasons. Her progress has been meteoric, but also solid. Her achievements aren't the result of luck, but of constant work, technical development, and a mental focus that has allowed her to compete without fear against the best in the world. The victory in Paris was her crowning moment, but also a clear warning she's here to stay. The impact of this victory was felt beyond the sports world. In Santa Lucia, the country celebrated with pride its first Olympic gold in athletics. It was a victory that united the nation, that inspired young people, and that showed that with dedication, talent, and opportunity, any country can produce champions. The name Julien Alfred was engraved in Olympic history not just for her speed, But for what her victory represented, the generational change, the global advancement of athletics, and the possibility of the unexpected, Alfred also left an important tactical lesson for coaches and athletes around the world. The start is vital. In the 100 meters, where there's no room for errors, starting well can mean winning. Alfred understood it and executed it. Her work in the starting blocks and her transition up to 30 meters was simply perfect. It's a skill she developed from indoor competitions, where she had already proven to be a specialist, even winning in the 60 meters with times that were close to the world record in the days following the Olympic final. Media and fan attention focused on this new sprint star. Could she maintain her level? Was it just an isolated feat or the beginning of an era? The answers would come in the following competitions, especially in the Diamond League final in Brussels, where Alfred and Richardson would meet again. But what became clear from Paris was that Julien Alfred had changed the map of world women's sprinting, and that from now on nobody could underestimate her. After Julien Alfred's historic victory in the women's 100 meters during the Paris Olympic Games, the landscape of women's athletics changed significantly. The St. Lucian sprinter not only made history for her country, but also ignited a new era in women's sprinting, previously dominated by the great Jamaican stars with the partial retirement or physical problems of figures like Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, Elaine Thompson-Herah, and Shericka Jackson. The stage was set for a new generation, and that generation had names Julien Alfred and Sha'Carri Richardson. International media began to compare Alfred with legends of the past. However, the pressure to keep shining after the games is no easy task. The post-Olympic season always represents a challenge. Athletes come from weeks of maximum performance, media exposure, commercial commitments, and physical exhaustion. In this context, the Diamond League in Brussels became the next big stage to measure the true level of athletes after Paris. In Brussels, the atmosphere was loaded with expectations. Sha'Carri Richardson, who didn't win Olympic gold, arrived with renewed motivation. She knew she had to show she was still a real threat. Her explosive speed, her charisma, and her competitive character made her a natural crowd favorite. On the other hand, Alfred carried on her shoulders the pressure of gold and the responsibility of confirming herself as the new queen of world sprinting. The race in Brussels didn't disappoint. From the start, it was clear it would be a tight battle. This time, Richardson had a much more solid start than in Paris, which allowed her to position herself alongside Alfred in the first 40 meters. However, unlike the Olympic final, Alfred couldn't maintain the same fluidity in her transition and final acceleration. Richardson crossed the finish line with a time of 10.84 seconds, while Alfred finished in 10.93, showing a slight drop in her performance. This victory by Sha'Carri not only gave her the Diamond League title, but also revitalized her image before the world. She proved that she doesn't let herself be defeated by an Olympic disappointment and that she still has the ambition to be the best. For Alfred, on her part, the defeat served as a valuable lesson. Elite sprinting requires consistency, strategy, and adaptation. The technical analysis of both athletes made clear the strengths and weaknesses of each one. Julien Alfred, with her incredible reaction at the start, usually below 0.130 seconds, has a clear advantage in the first meters. However, in the races after the Olympic Games, her maintaining speed wasn't as dominant. In contrast, Richardson has a more powerful mid-acceleration and a very aggressive final stretch, which compensates for her less explosive starts. This contrast between both creates a fascinating rivalry. It's like watching two different sprint styles face off, Alfred's technical precision against Richardson's natural power and aggressiveness. Both also represent different sporting cultures. Alfred comes from a small Caribbean country with a modest athletic history, while Richardson represents the United States, a powerhouse with enormous tradition and resources throughout the post-Olympic season. The two met again in Zurich, where, once again, the American managed to win. Although Alfred showed improvements in her middle phase, she still hadn't reached her optimal performance point. Weather conditions also played a role. In Zurich, the crosswind affected the starting technique, favoring athletes with more sustained acceleration, like Richardson. Despite these results, Julien Alfred never lost her composure. Her disciplined approach, her humility, and her mental strength are attributes that distinguish her. In several subsequent interviews, she expressed that each defeat is part of the growth process and that her goal isn't simply to win races, but to leave a legacy and proudly represent her country. At the same time, Sha'Carri Richardson also showed a more mature side. Far from her provocative statements of the past, she began to focus more on her training and performance. Her coach emphasized in various press conferences that one of Richardson's great advances had been her ability to focus on the essential, moving away from media distraction. This mentality change was crucial for her comeback in the season. Meanwhile, other competitors like Dina Asher-Smith, Mary Josie Tialou, and Tamari Davis didn't stay behind. Although they didn't win Olympic gold or the Brussels final, their times were very close to the podium. In particular, Davis, at just 21 years old, showed herself to be a solid promise with several times below 11 seconds. The diversity of the elite group in the women's 100 meters adds even more excitement to each competition. The Diamond League closed with a feeling of transition. The absolute dominance of Jamaican sprinters seemed to be ending, and the new rivalry between Alfred and Richardson was consolidating as the central axis of women's sprinting. The 2024 season had witnessed historic changes, and the future promised even more excitement. Eyes were already turning toward the 2025 World Athletics Championship.